All right, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and continue our discussion with some of the other modules that are important for our overall design and structure of our sites. Okay, so we just finished a section on building themes, okay, building our theme projects. We're going to go ahead and take a look here at layout templates. Okay, now what are layout templates? Layout templates are not actually free marker templates per se. They are, if it's easier to remember this, you can just say layouts, because I know there's a lot of things in Liferay that use the word templates. Layouts are essentially the grid-like structure on our pages where we can place our widgets, our content, different things like that. So on the front page, for example, we just have a single page, a single column page rather, and that's going to be a single column layout. Okay? If we wanted to change that, we could change it to a 50-50 style. We could change it to having one column on the top with two on the bottom with different sizes. Okay. All right, now layouts fit within the Bootstrap grid system. So that means that we have 12 sections in a fluid grid system that can be divided up as needed. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to have a layout that splits right down the middle and we have 50% of the page on both sides where I can place my widgets, that would be a column 6 and a column 6. Okay, so that fits within our 12. Okay, this will make it very, very easy for us to actually generate new layouts, as we'll see when we actually build some together. Okay, we can continue using the theme generator to create our layouts, and this time it's simply going to be the Yo Liferay theme layout command. Okay, this will give us that wizard like we've seen before, where we can add that initial information about our layout, and then we can actually determine how the columns and rows should be set up for our layouts. Okay. All right, so the nice thing about the NPM tool that we have here, the generator, is that it allows us to, again, add rows, columns, determine how large each row should be, and we also get a visual representation handed to us so we can see, okay, this is exactly what I was going for, and you can go ahead and remove rows, you can edit those rows, etc., etc. Okay, so it's actually a really nifty tool, as we'll see. It makes it nice and easy for us to rapidly generate new layouts as needed. Okay. Now, when layouts are created, the layout module project includes a main TPL file. That's going to be the source file for each layout. And these can be modified manually. All right, so this is an example here on my slide of what a layout might look like. This is a layout from one of the other themes on the marketplace built by our engineers. It's called the Porygon theme. Okay. No, I don't know if it was named after Porygon the Pokemon, for all of you Pokemon nerds out there, but I'm going to just say it was because I think that's amazing. Okay. Anyway, so this is an example of our TPL for a 50-50 with some limited width layout. Okay. What's important here in this example code is that we have these columns. Okay, so we can see here we have a div, okay, with column medium 2. All right, and we have some other classes here. So portlet column, which always needs to be there, and then portlet column first. Okay, that's going to identify where this is, and then each ID is going to be its own. So column 1, 2, 3, for example. And then we also have this method being run here, this processor.process column, and it's processing the ID as well as the classes. Okay, so this can be manually edited. It doesn't need to be necessarily. If we use the graphical editor, that will actually do everything we need for a basic layout. But I could do some fancy things here if I do some manual editing. If I added a new class, for example, I could style it a certain way in my theme. So one example of that might be if I was building a site where I had some thin columns on the very ends, the right and left-hand side, and they're intended for, let's say, advertisements. And I wanted those advertisements to have a little bit of a different design than the core content in the middle. I could theoretically add a class on there. We could call it the advertisement class or something like that. And then in my theme, go ahead and style that class. Okay, so when they're deployed together, I get the user experience that I'm looking for within my layout. Okay, So that's just one example of why you might want to open up the TPL file and give it a look and also do some manual editing, okay? But for our purposes, we can actually generate these really quickly and not actually have to open the TPL file at all, okay? All right, so this is just covering here what I've basically already discussed. We have that process or process column, process is the ID, process is the classes, and then we have the column variables as well as some bootstrap classes for the actual size of the columns. All right, now we talked about embedding widgets in a theme using some of those tag libs. We can actually embed widgets in a layout as well. So what's the difference and what's the benefit? Okay, when I embed a widget into a theme, I can do it in the header, I can do it in the footer. If you're thinking about the portalnormal.ftl, that HTML source file we discussed earlier, okay, I can put it in that middle content section, but it's either going to be above or below where the other applications and where the layout is. You can't necessarily plug it into the layout per se, okay, through the theme. Now, the benefit of embedding widgets into layouts is that I can determine, number one, when the widget should be on a page, and that's just done because I can configure when and where I want to have a particular layout, okay? And two, it allows me to place the widget in the middle of the layout. So for example, if I wanted to embed a navigation widget or something like that, search widget or anything along those lines in the actual content area of the page, that can be done through a layout. Okay, so there are a couple of ways of doing that. If the widget does not have a Java class that extends the base portlet provider, developers can use this theme.runtime function with the ID, and that's something that you'll have to look in the source code to find out. Okay, but basically you can find the IDs in the widgets themselves and their configuration. You can go ahead and run that test. Okay, otherwise you can go ahead and use that processor.process portlet, so it's different than the processor.process column. And here we can go ahead and add in the class name as well as the actions. This is similar to some of the other tag libs that we discussed in the previous section, okay? And these can be added to any of those columns and embedded in those particular columns, okay? So this is an example of some widgets that can be included. Okay, so for example, if we were using the theme.runtime, we wanted to embed the login portlet, okay, so the login widget. We can go ahead and use theme.runtime and then grab the class ID there, okay? And that would embed it in this particular column of this layout. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk through an exercise to create a layout and deploy it together. All right, it's gonna be awesome. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna hop over here. Go ahead and make sure your command line or terminal is up. We're gonna go ahead and navigate to the Liferay folder. This is where we need to create our layout. Okay, so go ahead and run yo Liferay theme : layout. All right, Mr. Yeoman is back. He's asking us for some information for our layout, and we're gonna give it to him. Okay, so go ahead and name this guy here hotel front page. Okay, that's going to be the layout. All right, go ahead and accept that ID just like we've done before. Okay, we're going to be on 7.1. All right, and it immediately goes into asking us how many columns we would like for our first row. Okay, so what we want is we want to go ahead and have a full top column, okay, so where we can have any banner images, hero images, carousels, different things like that for the front page. So go ahead and type 1 and hit enter, okay? What you'll see here is it will give us the width options we have for one column, okay, in the first row. And that's just gonna be 12 out of 12, that is 100%. So go ahead and hit enter, okay? All right, and we're gonna go ahead and hit enter next to add row. We're gonna add another row here. Okay, and you'll see after each row that we create, we get a visual representation. So as we add rows, we'll continue to see our layout build in our terminal or command line. Okay, So for this next guy here, go ahead and type 3. There will be 3 columns in our second row. Okay, and hit enter. All right. And we're just going to do an even split. So 4, 4, 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay. So go ahead and come down to where it says 4 out of 12 and hit enter. Do 4 out of 12 again. And then lastly, our only option is going to be 4 out of 12. Go ahead and hit enter again. All right, and we have our top row with a full column. We have 3 columns in our second row. We can go ahead and hit enter next to add row again. Okay, and this time we're going to go ahead and do 2 columns in this third row. So type 2 and enter. All right, we're going to do 4 for the first column. So go down to 4, 12. And 8 for the next. Okay. All right. So now we want to go ahead and enter our last row. So go ahead and hit add row again. For this one, we're just going to do 1 and enter. And we're going to go ahead and select the 12 out of 12. Okay. All right. So this gives us our full layout here. We can do a whole bunch of stuff with this. All right, so let's go ahead and come down when we are finished to finish layout. Okay, now before I hit finish, I just want to show you guys, you can also see insert row and remove row. Okay, so if I wanted to insert between one of these, if I wanted to remove one of these and start over, I can go ahead and do that with these options. All right, go ahead and hit finish layout. All right. And this is going to be similar to our theme package in that it's going to build it for us. And it's also here going to ask for our app server, okay, for our Liferay bundle. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to go ahead and go to our Liferay folder. If you don't already have this file open, this is going to be in C Liferay or user home Liferay. It will be in the Liferay DXP Digital Enterprise 7.1 M1. And then Tomcat. Okay. If you're on Windows, again, you can go ahead and just simply copy this and paste it into your command line. And for those of you on OS X with me, we can go ahead and just simply drag this folder into the terminal and hit enter. Okay. And then we want to go ahead and just accept the URL here, localhost 8080. Again, if you change the port earlier on, you can go ahead and just make sure it's reflected here and hit enter. Okay, nice and easy, right? We created the layout, we determine what the layout will include, and we select the app server. Okay, now we want to go ahead and deploy. So go ahead and do CD and navigate to our new layout. So it will be hotel front page layout TPL. Okay, go ahead and hit enter. And go ahead and run a gulp deploy. Okay. All right. Nice and fast. So this will give us the initial iteration of our layout. Okay. Now, in our layout that we just deployed, okay, if I go to my Liferay folder and I go to my new layout, okay, in docroot, which is where my source files will exist, I have a default PNG for the layout. This is what's going to show up in Liferay when I'm choosing my layouts. Okay, this doesn't quite match the other layouts, and it's certainly not helpful in visualizing what this layout will actually be like. Okay, so let's go ahead and replace this. So go ahead and go to your exercises. Okay, again, those will be in your Liferay folder, and open up the 04 layout templates. Okay. All right, so if I open up my hotel front page PNG here, okay, we now have a visual representation of what this layout will be like. Okay, so go ahead and copy this from the exercises here. Come back to our layout template docroot, and we're just going to go ahead and paste it here and replace the existing image. All right, so now we have a new icon here. We can go ahead and run gulp deploy again. Okay, or if you haven't already run gulp deploy, you can run it now. Okay, we're gonna give it a second to load, and then we'll go check it out by configuring our page. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the browser. If you are not logged in, go ahead and make sure you log in. Okay, again, you should have an admin account, Josiah Copeland at livingston.com, or whatever you've added here. Okay, don't forget your password. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and if you come to the top right, you'll see there's an option to configure the page. So go ahead and click on that. All right, and we'll now see our hotel front page option, okay? Now we don't need to necessarily make this change right now, but it is an option here, okay? And we can see that our little icon shows up, so it is easy to determine what exactly our layout is going to look like on any given page. So to recap here, layout templates are modules that we can use that include the rows and columns where we can add widgets to our page. Okay, they can be rapidly generated by using our NPM tools. Okay, they allow us to create new rows with columns that can go up to a 12 grid system from Bootstrap. So we can theoretically have up to 12 columns in any given row. Okay. All right, and we can go ahead and also embed widgets in them as well if we'd like. Okay. So these are pretty cool. They help us to not only work with our theme that gives us sort of the global overall look and feel changes, but it also helps us to control how our widgets or content is going to be displayed on any given page in that content section, if you remember from the portal normal file of the theme. Okay. Okay, so congratulations, you made your first layout template, or maybe it's not your first layout template, but feel free to continue working with the NPM tools, create some new layouts, try some new things. If you want to have a little bit of fun, you can find some sort of an image editor to create a new icon for your new layout to visually represent how the grid will be set up on any of your individual pages. Okay. All right, so in the next section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna dive into our different FreeMarker template options on the platform. Okay, so from now on, we'll be working on the actual platform and looking at our web content templates, ADTs, as well as fragments. Okay, so thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you in the next set of videos.